Hello, welcome to Lesson 2 for Microsoft Excel. In this lesson, we're going to address a common problem most people deal with in their lives, and that's finances. We're going to talk about how to set up your own personal budget. Most people use a budget to plan how they're going to spend their money each month. Without a plan, your money will just simply disappear. So, in order to set up a budget, we're going to use Microsoft Excel. The first thing that we'll want to do is set up our categories for spending. Our categories are going to be in column A, and then at each column after that we're going to put our each month of the year. So here, let's go ahead and get started. The first line that I'm going to use is going to be A2. And in A2, I'm going to set up my income line. It's important that you have income in your budget because that's what you take home each month. That's how much you know how to spend. The next line we're going to do are monthly expenses. We want to double click we'll do the check mark, and then we want to double click our line here on A to expand our column. And underneath monthly expenses, we're going to go ahead and add a bottom border. And then we're going to go ahead and list our monthly expenses. It's important when you set up a budget that you prioritize your spending. So the first thing you always want to do is pay yourself first. So the first category you want to set up is savings. The three main reasons you save money are: first, for emergencies. You know, if something happens, you want to have cash there to pay for it. The car breaks down, or you need to buy a new tire, or you get sick and have to go to the doctor. You want to have cash savings saved up so that you can pay for those emergencies. So emergency savings is generally the first type of savings that we save for. The second type of savings we have is for our future retirement. One day we're not going to want to work anymore. Instead, we're going to want to have our investments or our retirement account pay us enough money so that we don't have to work. And then the last thing you want to save for are big major expenses. So say you want to buy a car or a boat or a television or something like a bed or a piece of furniture. You might want to save up money for that instead of using credit. So by saving each month, that will give you an account that you can go and negotiate good pricing and purchase things for cash, because cash is king. So after we have our savings, we want to go ahead and add our next line of expenses. Generally, the next thing you want to add is rent or your house payment. So we'll go ahead and put that. Now, it's important when you're renting something or you're paying a house payment that you never exceed more than 25% of your take-home pay. So in our example, let's go ahead and go to B2 and say that we have $3,000 in income. I'll go ahead and type that in there. And then in our savings, we want to save 10% of our income, so that's $300. And then towards rent, we don't want to spend more than about 25% of our take-home pay, so that's going to be $750 a month. So the next expense that we'll have would be something like utilities. Our light bill, our electric bill, our gas, our water, those kind of things. So I'll add that. And underneath utilities, we actually want to go ahead and put subcategories because we want to break that down further. We don't want to just have one big utility line. What we want to do is have a line for electricity, another line for gas, another line for water, and you probably want to have another line for trash. And then what you want to do with those lines is you want to go ahead and highlight those three there, and let's align them to the right because they're subcategories. So we have utilities, and underneath that we have each line. After utilities, you probably have transportation, so we want to go ahead and add that. And let's make sure that's a line left. And then underneath that, you want to put your transportation expenses. So you might have a car payment. You might have, well, you will have gasoline. You'll also have car insurance. And you'll also have maintenance. And then you might even have toll fees, right? After transportation, then you have groceries. Without food, it'd be hard to survive, right? And then we want to make sure that's a line left because that's a new category. Then after groceries, you might have some other expenses like personal expenses. And underneath personal expenses, again, align that left, you might want to have subcategories. So these subcategories might include clothes. Can't go around naked. Might include haircut. Let's put nails. You gotta have your nails, right, ladies? And some of you guys. So after our personal expenses, then we might have something like entertainment show up. And then you might even have other debt like student loans. Okay, so you have all these different categories of expenses that we've set up. And now let's go ahead and set up our months. So the first month of the year is pretty simple. It's January, right? We'll tab over to C3 and we'll type in February. Now, with Excel, you can actually go ahead and highlight these two with your white plus and then go to the fill handle here, that bottom right corner of the box. Click and drag sideways and it will autofill all your months. And we'll do that all the way till December. That way we have each of our months of the year there. Now let's go ahead and fill in the rest of our chart here. So we've already got savings put in. We've got rent of $750. Utilities, we're going to break down each category. A reasonable cost for an electric bill is probably, for a small apartment, it's probably somewhere around $150 a month. Gas, you might pay another $30 a month. Water, you might pay $50 a month. And then trash, you might have another $20 a month. For transportation, the average car payment in America is $475. Gas each month, you're probably looking at spending at least $50 a week on your gas. So that's probably $200. Car insurance is probably a good $100 a month, maybe more. I would say at least $120 for a young person. And then maintenance, you want to budget in things like oil changes and auto tags and inspections and tires and brake jobs and stuff like that. So I would imagine your monthly maintenance budget should probably be somewhere around $50 a month. Whatever you don't use each month, you'll simply just put in your own envelope or you put in savings so that you can take care of future maintenance expenses. And then if you want to drive around on the tollway, then you would have some toll expenses. Now, typically you might have somewhere, let's say maybe $50 a month in tolls. And then groceries, you got to eat. So I would imagine you would spend at least $50 to $100 a week at the grocery store. And you got to remember, you've got to buy things like paper towels and toilet paper and makeup and things like that you buy at the grocery store, shampoo, toothpaste. Those are all included in your grocery bill. Not to mention the food, maybe the apples and bananas you buy and cans of beans and stuff like that. So I would imagine each month you're probably going to spend around $400 a month in groceries. And then clothes, you might spend $50 a month in clothes. You're probably not going to buy a new pair of shoes every month. You might, but you probably won't. Haircut probably costs you another $50 a month, especially for you ladies out there. And then nails, I would just go ahead and budget maybe $50 a month in for that. And then entertainment, entertainment, you probably, if you want to go out to the movies, go out to eat, stuff like that, it's going to cost you some money. So if you go out to the movies, that's easy $20 there, especially if you buy concessions. If you go out to eat, you easily spend $10 to $20 each time you go out to eat. If you go out to a place like Main Event, I mean, that place can really drain the budget. So you probably want to budget at least $200 a month, maybe even $300 a month for entertainment. And then you may have student loans once you get out of college. Let's pretend that you have $100 a month in student loan payments. On student loans, I'm going to go ahead and align that back to the left because it's a different category. Alright, so we got all of our monthly bills listed. Now you'll notice that these numbers are just plain numbers. They don't look like money at all. So what we want to do is go up to column B here, and we're going to click on it. So we select that whole column. We're going to go to our Home tab. Underneath our Home tab in the middle, you'll see a number box. In the number box, we're going to change our numbers to money. So the best thing to do is just simply click this $sign. And when you do that, it changes our format to accounting. And now that we're in accounting, you'll see that it gave it a $sign and decimals as well. So now we have all these numbers set up. The next thing we want to do is add these numbers together. But before we do that, I've noticed one utility that we're missing. Everybody's has a phone, right? And usually you have internet with that. So let's go back and include that in our utilities. So I'm going to go ahead and click on any of these utility rows, but I'm going to go ahead and click on 10, our last one. And then I'm just going to right click and insert. And when I do that, it adds a new row. So then on A10, I can go ahead and type in phone. And I don't know about you, but my cell phone plan runs about $80 a month. So I'll type that in. And then we probably want to go ahead under entertainment, put in something like cable, right? You guys might want to have cable TV or internet, and usually those are bundled together. So I'll go back to the entertainment line, and underneath that, I'm just going to go ahead and right click, insert. And actually what it did was it inserted a row above, right? Well, I want to put that row below, so what I'm actually going to do is go ahead and highlight my two cells here for entertainment. Then I'm going to right click on it, I'm going to cut it, then I'm going to go up to A23, and then I'm going to paste. Or you can insert the cut cells. So I pasted it up so I moved it. Then under entertainment, I'm going to go ahead and put in cable/internet. And then since that's a subcategory, you want to make sure it's aligned right. And this is in addition to our just going out to eat and playing around, right? So our cable and our internet bill could easily cost $100 a month. If you get Roadrunner, that's a good $45 a month, and then a basic cable package can easily cost you $60 or $70 plus all the fees and taxes. So $100 a month is reasonable to put in on your cable and internet bill. Alright, so now we've got all of our numbers set up for January. Let's go ahead and add some of these together. So the first thing we're going to do is calculate total. So we're going to create a total line. After we calculate total, we're also going to do average. And then underneath average, we're going to do minimum. Underneath minimum, we'll do maximum. The reason we're going to do these is because we want to use different formulas to show what each of these things is in our budget. We always want to do a total because that shows us how much our expenses are. So the best way to calculate total is to use the sum function. So if you go to the Home tab and then you go to the far right of our banner or the ribbon, you'll see a button that says Auto Sum. It has a sigma sign on it. If you click that, it's going to automatically put in our formula here. Now what you'll notice is that it doesn't put all the numbers in. It only highlights some of them. You can change this by typing the number, or you can go up to the corner of this box to where you get a double arrow, and then you can click and drag the box up all the way till you get to B4. So you highlight that whole column there. Then I'll check the check mark, and you'll notice that my expenses total up to $3,325. Then we're going to do our average. So the way we calculate average is to go back to the Home tab, go back to the editing box, click on this arrow right next to Auto Sum, then you're going to choose average. When you choose average, it's only going to select the number above it. So we want to move that. And so we'll grab that corner, we'll drag it all the way up to B4, and we actually want it to end at B25, so we'll grab that bottom corner there and pull it back up. Or you can type in the numbers. Once we get the formula set up, average B4 to B25, we'll check the check mark or hit enter on the keyboard, and you'll see that our average budget expense is $175. Next, we'll go down to B29. We'll go back to that drop down arrow in editing, and we'll choose the minimum function, which is MIN, and again we'll change this box to just our expenses, and then we'll check the check mark. You'll see our minimum or the lowest expense is $20, and that comes from our trash expense. Our maximum, we're going to go back up here to the editing box and choose the drop down arrow, and we're going to do max. And again, we'll change this box to include B4 to B25. Check the check mark, and you'll see that our maximum payment on our budget is $750, and that comes from our house payment. Now, we do have a little bit of an issue. All of our expenses add up to $3,325, and that exceeds our income of $3,000 a month. So we've got to cut back on some of our expenses. Probably the #1 mistake most people make is having a car payment. Do you know, in the book The Millionaire Next Door, Thomas Stanley interviewed thousands of millionaires, and the #1 thing that he found out is that these millionaires drive good used cars. They don't buy new cars. They don't pay a car payment. They pay cash for used cars. So if you can do that, then you can eliminate one of your largest expenses, which is this typical car payment. If you saved up your car payment for about a year, you would have almost $6,000 to spend on a good used car. And then you won't have to worry about car payments. So we're going to have to drop this number down because you're $325 over. So let's just pretend we don't have a car payment. In fact, let's change this from car payment to car savings. And let's change our number from $475. Let's drop that down to just $125 or $150. And now we have a balanced budget. And one of the things that you're saving for is a car. So guess what? When you buy that $5,000 or $4,000 used car, you're going to save $150 a month. In a couple of years, you'll have another $3,000 or $4,000 saved up, so that you can then sell your used car and trade it up, right? You can trade up to a little bit better car. If you do that every couple of years, before you know it, you will have a really good, maybe luxury car that's a couple of years old. You know, it's silly to buy a brand new car for $50,000 or $60,000 when 2 or 3 years later that car is only worth $30,000 or $40,000. Why does that happen? Because as soon as you drive a car off the lot, that car starts depreciating value. That means it loses value. You don't want to pay for all that depreciation. So it's a good idea to buy a car that's 3 or 4 years old and then drive that for 10 to 15 years. After all, the main purpose of a car is to get you from one place to another. Okay, the next thing we want to do in our exercise is we want to copy these numbers over to the months that follow. So we're probably going to save the same amount of money each month. The way we copy it is we drag the fill handle here on the bottom of our square to the right, and that will automatically copy all that number over completely. You can do the same thing with rent. Rent probably won't change for the whole year. Now for your utilities, they might change, but we're still going to copy those over to give us a basis each month. So what I want to do is actually highlight all 5 of my expenses for utilities. Then I can drag that fill handle over all the way to December, and it fills all that information in for me. I can do the same thing for transportation. I can do it for the rest of these numbers. And then I can even do it for my formulas in these 4 categories. So I'll click and drag and move that over, and you'll see that it fills in every single one of these. Now, you see all these hashtags. That does not mean I just started a Twitter account. That does not mean I'm trending. What that means is that this cell is too small for you to see the number that it produces. So what we're going to do is double click on the edge of the column so we make it wide enough for each of these columns. And you'll see that our total expenses are $3,000. Now, we talked about how bills can vary each month, right? So in the winter, your electric bill is actually probably going to be lower. Mine tends to be like $75 a month or less, because you're not running the air condition near as much. Now in March you might run it a little bit more, so it might go up. In April, maybe a little bit more. In May, then it might be more than that. And then in June and July, that's when you really start to see your electric bills going up. And you might even have a $200 electric bill in August, and then in September it'll start coming back down, and then October it comes down even more, and then again in November and December you're not running that air condition, so your bill tends to be lower. Same thing can happen with water. But you just saw me change all those electric bills, right? Now if I scroll down on my chart, you'll see that my totals changed automatically and my averages changed automatically. That's because we're using formulas and not simply typing in numbers. See, by using the sum formula, it automatically is calculating the total in each column. So if I make any changes, like to rent, it'll change the output at the bottom. This is the exact reason why Excel is such a powerful tool, because it will calculate things for you, especially when you use the formulas correctly. So the last thing we want to do is probably make this look a little bit neater. So let's go ahead and highlight all of our cells in row 3 there, and let's go ahead and add a bottom border to them. Let's also bold our column heads, and let's center them up by using center alignment. That'll make it look a little bit neater. And then I would go ahead and do the same thing to my categories on the right. I would make them bold as well. And then you might even add a right border. And so now that has given us a nice border to border off each of our months. Now some people might even like to add borders in between each month. You could do that. And then the last thing I would do is I would actually go ahead and highlight this whole box here all the way down to 30, from M30 all the way up to A3, and then I would go ahead and add maybe a thick box border to the outside. Now let's save it. So always save it to your U drive and into your Excel folder, and then let's name this Budget Demo. Now I'm going to put the number 1 next to it. So we'll save that. And then if you want to see what it looks like printed out, you go to Print Preview. You'll see that it cuts it off. Well, we can fix that by going into Page Setup. We can change it to Landscape so it prints sideways on the paper, and then we can scale it to fit 1 by 1 page. And then we'll hit OK. And when you do that, you can see your budget here, nice and neat with a good border around it, ready to go for you. You can print it out and put it on your fridge. Each month you can look at it and make sure the numbers are right and that kind of stuff. Or you can even make a PDF out of it and post it to Google Docs or whatever you want to do. This concludes our exercise. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a good budget and you've learned how to do things in Microsoft Excel and how to use it to create your own personal budget. Thank you for watching and have a good day.